Hi everybody, this is Lauren Delisa Coleman and you are inside another episode of the Filmio Inside series, an interview series that we're super happy to bring you that takes you behind the scenes with different filmmakers, producers, directors, and so much more. And I am very excited about this next interview. I'm excited about all of them, what can you say? But I have Roth with me here, who is kind of just the superstar behind the short documentary, and we're going to get into like kind of a concert short documentary, which I think is hot and different, at least from what I've seen. But it's Blondie, Vivir in La Habana. Let's, just kind of get into this because I had, different questions I was jotting down as I was watching it. Mm-hmm. So I know that Blondie says, of course, during the film that it had been not maybe a lifelong dream, but certainly for many years they had wanted to go and play in Cuba.
Pretty much.
And so how did this kind of come about with, you kind of being the eye behind, all of this?
Well, the concert itself came about because the Ministry of Culture had, done this kind of exchange, cultural exchange with Havana and American culture. So, and it's true that Blondie, particularly Chris Stein, one of the founding members of Blondie, had been wanting to go to Cuba his whole life. Mm. So he told the manager at one point, like years ago, like, just get us to Cuba. That's all I care about. And this opportunity came up also because timing, and this is the funny thing about everything, it was all about timing. The kind of our complicated relationship with Cuba as a country, it was a moment of more open borders. Mm-hmm, so they did this cultural...
And you shot this when, I'm sorry?
In 2019.
To be clear. Okay.
2019. And so we went, anyway, they were invited to do 2 nights with, as a cultural exchange with Cuban musicians and all that. And I finally, for the first time, and I've been friends with Debbie for almost like 30 years, but I work with them sporadically. But this was the first time I pitched them, and I said, we have to document this. Because
so they hadn't thought about it then before.
No.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think maybe we should back up just a moment because I know what you're talking about and you know what you're talking about, but just for the audience. So this is a short documentary concert film, if I'm, kind of really describing it properly, about Blondie, their first time in Cuba, right? And so I just thought it was very cool to kind of look at this, but from a short, kind of perspective. What made you decide to kind of use that route as opposed to the full-on, like the Beyonce extravaganza, where you're going to do the 2-hour thing and, see everything behind the scenes and them on tour and what all that's like. This was really different and maybe more intimate because of that, right? So tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, mostly it's, you work in restrictions. It was budgetary mostly, but I find that sometimes restrictions make you think more creatively or outside the box, or how it, if this is how much we have, how can we make this more interesting? So I would have loved to have done a full-length feature, but it just didn't have the budget. But I also decided that I would, like an insane person, that I would shoot real film and not digital. And so we shot on 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter. We did shoot the concert on digital, but I mixed them together. So we only had so many spools of film. So it was, it was one of those kind of like, is this going to be the biggest disaster ever, bringing film into a communist country and not even know if it was exposed correctly or whatever, but it worked out. So,
wow, and that's just crazy. So, but you did have enough of a budget to do animation.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the little UFOs and everything that are drawn in there. How did you kind of just come up with that? Because as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, oh, Rob just must be a very playful person. So to make it, kind of more interesting, I don't want to give everything away, of course, but there'll be different scenes, and then you'll just see like a little UFO or some little I don't know, effects or whatever, just kind of drawn there, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like graffiti, but it's moving. How did you guys come up with that? It's fun.
That was my idea to be. I mean, a lot of my inspiration came from kind of these I don't know, like experimental films of the 70s and Super 8 films and 16 millimeters. But there's this technique where you would actually draw on the film itself, scratch technique. But I couldn't do that, but that was kind of I wanted to evoke that. But all of the animations mean something. They're all
Do they?
kind of symbolic for something, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, I had many specific ideas that I would give the animator, but then he also took a little bit of free. I said, you know, if you have some ideas too, now that you've seen the cut, you know, what do you think would work where and why? You know, I always ask like, well, what does that mean? You know, how can we make that sort of more meaningful? And that's also, I don't know if you noticed, the 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter are the only places that I do that. I don't touch any of the digital. And to me, it's like those cameras were almost like looking at the invisible that's around you. Like it was almost like the ether or and that was the point of making the film in 3 parts that are air, fire, and water.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. How did you decide on that as well? Because it kind of gives you, you know, a kind of beginning and an end. Like this part, okay, now I'm moving to this part and that part, which is also, I believe, a bit different for a concert approach as well. No?
Yeah. Well, originally I wanted to make I thought I'd make 3 little films and they would live online, you know, one day at a time they would be released. And then when we put them together, I realized they just flowed really well and there should be one piece. And it also feels like it's a short, you know, it's an 18-minute short, but I wanted it to feel bigger than a short, you know, or have it sort of more cinematic, you know, chaptering. But it all started when Debbie, my interviews with her aren't even interviews, they're just conversations, like in her hotel room or wherever, because I can just knock on her door and say, hey, I have a question about this. And she started talking about water and how water calms her. She's a double water sign. She's, you know, and so all this talk about water. She was born in Miami. Most people don't realize that. She was adopted.
I didn't realize that until I watched the film as well.
She was born in Miami and she was adopted by a family in New Jersey. So that's how she got to New York. But she was born near water, near the Gulf too. So she kept talking about that, and I thought, well, that's interesting, water. And I kept thinking about all the elements and how the magic, and then also just the magic of music and the invisible. They arrived there, and none of us speak Spanish. And I watched the rehearsal, which they had barely any time, and everyone fell into place. It was like magic. It was amazing. And that's like this spoken language of music. And so that was really amazing to witness. I thought, you know, another thing that I thought, well, this might not work out, but it was amazing.
So, how long was the actual, I guess, the shoot itself in Cuba, and then you came back and did a lot of the animation, etc. So, how long would you estimate the whole project, you know, from beginning to end? Did you worked on it, or how long did it take to kind of come together?
I mean, a project like this that has such a low budget, it takes a lot longer. Now, the shooting schedule was what it was. We were there for 7 days, and I just shot. And I don't know if one of the things that's revealed is that the irony of life is Chris Stein didn't go.
Well, and this was so sad when I saw that.
And that's just the roll of the dice of life.
And he really wanted to be able to go. It was all like his thing.
Yeah, but it made the film actually, again, have a little bit more of a bittersweet kind of, moment to it, and how life is really about chances. But then the post, I had to then realize that I had to shoot Chris in New York, because I found out he wasn't going on the way to the airport. So it was like, I had to really think, what's this gonna do? So what I realized is we had to shoot more in New York, because I needed his take on, the whole thing. Why did you want to go to Cuba and you didn't go, and all of that? So we did that. So that was another couple of days. And then post is basically about I worked at a place called Matt Projects. They took it on, and it was like a very low budget. So you do it when you had the time. In post-production, when you have a budget like mine, you get bumped for the AT&T commercial that week, and then you have to come back the next week. So it takes a much longer time, which is fine, because I actually didn't know really where it was going to end up. I mean, the Tribeca Film Festival was not part of the plan. It's happened. So sometimes you work really a long time and a hard time, and you don't know where it's ending up, but it's worth the time putting into it, So we finally, and then the irony is we finished it in February of 2020, right before lockdown, right a week before, what happened. And so then I thought, oh, it's so, now it's going to get shelved. But that's also the reason that it's made it into all these festivals, because I had time to submit it. It would have just come out online probably. So, you never, just when you think a door is closed,
Yes.
another one opens. It's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So it's been a real ride, as most, films
Yeah.
are. I mean, it's just, you have to be a certain personality really to just be like, I'm going to shoot a film, even a short.
Yeah, crazy, basically.
Just some of the stories that I've heard are just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But tell me a little bit about, I guess, your background, which I guess gives you or has given you the capability to, stay like the kind of long haul. So can you share with our audience a little bit about the behind the scenes of Rob?
Oh man, it's insane.
Rob.
I mean, I always say there should be a documentary about the making of anything I make, because it's always an epic.
Really,
people
it's never
won't
a
even
straight
believe
line.
it. Yeah, it's just like I did a theater piece, because I do not just do film. I do theater, film. I perform. I'm kind of all over the place. But the last theater piece that I did, I said I should do a documentary about the making of this, because it's just, you can't believe how many things go wrong, and how it's almost like I even asked myself, I'm like, how am I still doing this? How am I making this happen? And you do. You just, like I said, you hit a wall, and then you think it's over. I think this is a lot of people's kind of problems, especially today, because of everything is so quick. You have to realize that isn't an end. That's actually pushing you in another direction, in another, like a DP quits a week before, or says he doesn't want to do it a week before you think it's over. And I remember my friend, I'm dear friends with Rebecca Hall, the actress, and she said to me, I was having this hard time, because she was in the show, and she said, it's all going to work out. It always does. And I thought, easy for you to say, but she was completely right. He was not the right DP. And then suddenly I got the best cinematographer for that project. And it's like, you think it's over, and it's not. It's actually stopping you from a bigger disaster.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I was reading about that in just some different spiritual scenarios, probably just earlier this year. And I said, oh, well, that kind of, it makes sense, but it still doesn't prevent me from not being impatient.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It helps you to maybe have a bit of clarity, but still, what do you do when you're like, oh, okay, well, I know now that it's not over, so that's great.
Yeah.
But now what do I do while I'm marking time?
Exactly.
And so what are some of maybe the methods or...
Tequila.
Okay,
Mezcal,
that's good.
actually, now I like mezcal. No, I mean, it's really about, there is that thing of like, do I need patience here, or do I need to push harder? And that is always a very fine line in filmmaking, because sometimes you have it's timing. You have this opportunity that opens up, you have to go for it. If it's not convenient for you, but it's convenient for the actor or the thing, you have to make it work. Because you're given these moments in time, like, okay, this is when it's colliding, but I have to figure out how to get all of it to work, because that is the moment. And then there's other times where you just go, it's not meant for right now. We'll find another way. And those are hard to discern, particularly when you have very little budget, and you don't know what,
Right.
You don't have a lot of production help. You're kind of, one-man band of doing a lot of things. But that's the other thing, your team. I always like having a small but really good team. I find that better than a larger team.
And is your team today one that you've kind of created over the years and you've continually worked with them, or
Sometimes.
do you have kind of interchangeable people in the team, or how does it
Yeah.
kind of work for you?
I mean, I've worked with people several times, but then of course they become really successful and they're not available anymore.
How interesting.
But then someone else comes in who's like just as good. Like for instance with the Vivir in Havana, I was like, who is gonna do this crazy idea with me? Who? And there was a Nick Weisner, who was the cinematographer, young guy, originally from Colombia, worked at a place that I worked, and I had not remembered this, someone had reminded me that he worked at the mill, he does 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter, and we met, and it was like, yes, you are there is no one else to do this. And I was right, he speaks Spanish, he knows the cameras, he's down for I call him the Indiana Jones of cinematographers. He will jump off something and get it. Like, he's not a diva in any way, shape, or form. And it was just he and I. was amazing. So with that kind of energy and that kind of also talent, it's how it came out
Got it.
because you find, and that was timing. We just found each other at the right moment.
So it sounds like so much of your kind of vibe is about just kind of going with the flow. You know, you
I'd
speak
like
to
to
some
say that,
some
but
filmmakers, and it's very kind of methodical, and it's this and it's this and
Yeah.
it's this. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
yours seems kind of like a little more free flow. It's kind of fun.
it's funny that you say that because most people call me a perfectionist. That I get, which I am. I am a perfectionist, but I'm also. I think I'm open to that because I have to be. In someone in my situation who is usually budgetary or whatever, it's really experimental filmmaking, you know, like this kind of indie. It's not even, you know, it's super indie.
Yeah.
You have
But that's
to.
the cool thing about it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an adventurer, so it's, you know, that's the other side of me. I was a little nervous with this one, going to a country I've never been to, a communist country. I was like, this could be a disaster, but it's going to be fun.
I was gonna say that's the fun part about
Yeah,
it. It might
let's
be
see
like
how
the worst
much
thing
of
ever.
a disaster
Yes.
this could be.
Yes.
And it didn't, you know, so you have to be open to that. But I am meticulous. I mean, ask anyone who works with me. I'm incredibly, I know what I want. I really can say that. I'm very
Interesting.
clear.
So now, how was it? It's apparently you have a long-standing relationship with Debbie Harry. What'd she think about just shooting this, you know, with you? And does it make it harder or easier to shoot with somebody who's like, you know, your homegirl? Like, I really wonder.
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, easier generally because like I said, I can go up to her hotel room and be like, okay, look, what do you know, I've just thought of an idea. Can we do this or that? And it is easier for me to say, you know, like a perfect example, our one day off. I was obsessed with getting this one shot in my head, which is, you know, it's a cliche shot in a way, but it's, come on. I wanted her in the back of a convertible, you know, 57 Chevy, driving at the magic hour, driving around Havana. It's like no brainer, you know, one of the most beautiful rock stars ever. So I said, we have to do it on your one day off. And, you know, we have to do this. And I said, but I'll make it fun. I promise I'll make it fun. And so I said, in fact, I'll bring some wine and we'll, like, you know, and really in that footage, it really is us having a good time together because we know each other. So if it was a filmmaker who'd never had met her and wanted to do this, she probably would have said no, you know, and I said, this is our day off and we will have fun, but, you know, I really need to get this shot because it's going to be, and that one I kind of fought for, and I'm glad. Because you look at it, it's like, okay.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because when I
sublime.
think now, that's one of the scenes that I like remember first.
Yeah, it's
because
sublime.
it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's
you know?
amazing.
And it looks fun. You wish like you were in
Yeah,
that
exactly.
car, right?
We are having fun.
It looks like it.
There's no acting there.
So what's next for you then? Or do you have a plan?
I
You
have,
let it kind of just happen?
no, I have a couple of things I want to do. There's a 4-channel film installation that I'm working on based on a playlet by Wayne Kostenbaum. And that's very early on, but I know I want to do that, a 4-channel, you know, film installation that you have to go to. I've worked in that. I do installations too. I don't always work in just straight film. In fact, I prefer these new forms that I'm always interested in new forms of storytelling and how to, I did a sound installation on the High Line that, you know, had no video in it. So it's like, I feel like there's many, many forms of storytelling that you can do now. So that is something I'd really like to do. I also have, you know, there's the talk of a full-length, I guess you'd call it a documentary biography of Debbie that I would like to.
Wait, but we love this. The talk. Not committing on film right now.
I mean, I would like to do that, you know, and I feel like I'm the one who could.
And it's funny, you know, when I was watching this film, I was thinking, wait, why haven't I? Wait, did I miss that like documentary? What? And you're like, no, it hasn't really been created just yet. So.
Well, I was a creative director for her memoir that came out, Face It, about 2 years ago now, 2 or 3. And so in that process was when I was like, you know, we really should do almost the film version of this, or what I would say, because there are Blondie documentaries, you know, like Behind the Music, VH1, things like that. There's like 2 or 3, but there isn't a film necessarily about her, because, you know, it's beyond Blondie too. She had a life. Her life before Blondie is so interesting. She was a Playboy bunny. She ran with like everyone. I mean, it's just like they come out with stories on the tour bus that are you just go, what? Like, you know,
like you said,
Allen
even
Ginsberg and
that she was born in Florida.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if the average person knows that.
Yeah,
Of
she
course, I think
was
she's
adopted,
mixed.
so in a way it makes
That
so
we
much
didn't know
sense
either.
because she's been searching. You know, adopted, she can talk about it. Like, adopted people have this sense of longing usually. Like, they're, even if it's a great family stuff, they you know, she didn't know what are her blood, like, Chris Stein says the first time he ever met her family, she never told him that he was adopted, and he was like, what the hell? Where did you come from? Like, she looked completely different than anyone. So there's something about that I find really interesting. This soul searching, you know, like, who am I? And that's, in a way, I think that's what part of her drive to, you know, become what she's become. So I'd like to explore that in a film way.
I could only imagine the behind the scenes on that if we have a chance to talk about that, right? Because if all these things happen just with the short, the full on, get ready.
Exactly.
Anything else you want to share with us, Roth?
I don't know. I mean, I think this is such a great thing you're doing. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see.
I figured that you would be like super fun after watching, you know, this film. I was like,
I'm a good time.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
I do know how to have fun. That is the one thing.
Any quick bit of advice to, like, you know, filmmakers coming up out there?
You know, it's funny. Like, younger filmmakers, you know, or artists ask me, like, particularly filmmakers, what is your advice? And I always say there's a few things. I say advice is really relative. It's really hard. Everyone's path is completely different.
True.
So you can say, oh, you should do this, but that has nothing to do with their life. So, you know, but I also say take a painting course, which they look at me like I'm crazy. But I think painting, which is what I started as, is one of the most fundamental things you can learn from as far as everything, layering and color and, you know, emotion. And so it's something that it's my eye. I always look through everything as a painter's eye. That's what I've always
interesting.
said. So that's my little bit of advice sometimes. Yeah, even if you're not good at it, you will see. It taught me a lot. Painting is really what taught me everything, really. I just wanted the painting to move. That's what happened. I wanted the painting to start moving. I got
a true artist, Roth. Installations, painting, everything. What can we say?
I get bored easy, I guess. I don't know.
It seems like it. Well, I'm so glad that you could join us. Thank you so much. And this has been another episode of the Filmio interview series. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Lauren Delisa Coleman.